And so Felipe is a Colombian industrial designer working at Volkswagen. In the past few years, he has worked in virtual reality and artificial intelligence, and his personal and professional projects, believing that exploring and experimenting with new tools will always bring unexpected results that can change our creative workflow. All right, Felipe,
Hello,
welcome
everyone.
to Around.
Hello. Thank you for the introduction. Happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity of being in this really important event with really big names of design like Daniel Simon, Scott Robertson, and many more. So this is for me a checklist like, for sure to fulfill. So yeah, let's start, I would say.
All right,
Or
let's give it a go.
I would like to say maybe beforehand that I would like this design talk to be more like kind of a discussion in a way, and not only me presenting and talking like alone 40 minutes. So for sure, Daniela and Sofia, if they have any, let's say, question along the presentation, I will be happy to answer them. So yeah, let me know when I can start.
And for that, I think it would be great to start welcoming Sophia onto the stage. So, Sophia, welcome. Sophia is one of our very own design consultants. She is amazing. Probably a lot of you know her because she's quite famous.
Hello.
Hello, Sofia.
Hi, Felipe. Hi, Daniela. So excited to be here today and talk about new workflows and ideas.
Inspiring, inspiring.
Yeah. So, yeah, Felipe, go for it.
Okay, so let's see if I can fulfill the first talk of all the but yeah, I will start right away. As I was saying, I will be happy to have a discussion more than a presentation. So anytime we can discuss about what I'm presenting. Okay. So let's start. Can you see my screen? All good?
Yeah, yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Some housekeeping things, sorry, Felipe, before we start. So if you have any questions, please put them on the Q&A chat. So there's two chats, one with just like the general one, and there's one with Q&A that will make our life easier when we actually read them. All right, thanks. Go for it.
So yeah, welcome everyone to this design talk that it will be called Designing Between Realities. For the ones who doesn't know me, I will introduce myself again. I am Felipe Rojas Otero. I am a Colombian industrial designer, currently based in Germany. I am working as a working student in interior design by Volkswagen since a couple of years ago. And as a young industrial professional designer, I want to see myself really fulfilling two different tasks at the same time I create my own designs. On one side, I create concept design for sure for thinking of the future, what it will come. But on the other side, I also like a lot to make this creative workflow exploration. Right now, for sure, focus on VR, AI, but it can be applied to any kind of tool in the future. For me, it's really important to have this kind of, let's say, second task because it is about understanding, about testing, and also about implementing the new things that are coming for us. For sure, this will change the way we actually approach as professionals in our future. So for me, it makes sense to actually understand them. And even like sometimes you can break the tools, the softwares, but only sometimes, not all the times for sure, because this really allows the companies and the teams behind to really give the best result and actually creating tools to empower the way we create our own workflow. In this sense, we are choosing the, let's say, the tools, the software we want to use in our advantage and creating the ecosystem of ways that actually fit to us and really help us deliver the best result, the best way of actually giving the most biggest ideas for the future. One of the things that I have seen, let's say, as a misbelief that I really want to change in a way is people think it is basically a replacement when it comes to new technologies, new ideas of what we have right now and what is coming in the future. For me, it's most like an aspect of complementing. For me, I really want to see what can be improving right now with the new tools of the future, what are the good points of both sides, and actually merge them to really have the most enhanced process. For me, it makes sense to be always, let's say, having an open mind to testing. For sure, maybe it's not giving always the best results, but it is always interesting to see how actually our role as creatives are changing and are evolving in the way for sure in the future. The new tools, new softwares will always come. They will always be part of the change. So it is up to us to really see how we can implement them in the right way as we want. So with that said, I would like to introduce with my current workflow. This one I created in the last years, like turning around the AI and the VR. I created 3 different, let's say, key points where I have, let's say, different introduction of the softwares. In the first part, I have AI for inspiration. For me, it's really interesting to see how can actually this different reality inspire me in the ways that I was actually not expecting. I was not searching for this specific result, but the AI gave it to me, and I'm really happy that the AI gave it to me because I didn't knew I wanted until he gave it. So yeah, I use mostly right now Midjourney and Stable Diffusion for inspiration. Then I jump into development of the idea with VR with Gravity Sketch. It feels much more natural. It feels correct, like to have right away 3D what you're creating, what you're designing. Even in my small room, in my small apartment, I can have my one-to-one, really impressive and powerful car. So even for sharing, for having feedback with my mentor, with my boss, with my colleagues, it makes sense to have this development of the ideas with VR itself. And then in the last step, I use VR with Unreal Engine for visualization. This for me is also one of the biggest pros we can actually have for telling new stories and telling in a different way the things we are creating to the future. We are connecting in a much more deep way with the people who are watching our content, who are watching our ideas, and we can create a complete experience all around with VR. We are introducing them into a new dimension of reality. It is not focused on the single car itself alone, but it is actually focused on creating a new experience all around. So, for example, in the last 2 years, for myself, I have been using these tools. And at the start, for sure, as any tool, it was hard, let's say, to get along. But after having this 1 month as an experience, it was really just spiking up my way of results, of my way of I was thinking, creating, and generating new ideas in all my projects. So I'm really happy that I gave myself the chance of having an open mind to test new things and see how they go. And with that said, right now in this talk, we're going to see 2 different projects of these 4 ones. The first one will be the ID Bossy with Sophia, and the second one will be the Racer One, my bachelor thesis focused on AI. So Sophia, are you there?
Yeah, hello. So now we will jump to VR. Felipe will be
Okay.
in the headset. He will be inside his
Yes,
VR
I will
room,
put my.
and I will be navigating through the screen. Let me show you. So many of you know, or maybe don't know, that Gravity Sketch has 3 applications. We have the VR software, then we have a landing pad where all of your ideas live there happy loud. It's basically cloud. And then we have a screen application. So let me share it. Can you see my screen? Yeah. So this is a screen app. And now we see Felipe jumped into his headset and we see his avatar. And now you can also click here and you see all the online users. You see who is on the screen and you see who is inside VR. So Felipe, I'm going to pin you. So we will look through your eyes and you can explain the whole room, the whole project, and then we go stage by stage. Okay?
For sure, let's do it.
Okay. You are pinned.
Okay, so I will introduce the room. Basically, for this project, the idea was to actually have a complete workflow of exploration since the start inside of VR. So with Sophia, we have this seminar where we were like just trying stuff, and I really wanted to make like kind of a new version of the ID Pass. So I started since the beginning, actually making the exploration of all the workflow. We can see like 3 also different main key elements of the process. The first one was the wish of making a design. The second one, the wireframe development, and at the end result. But let's go step by step, I would say.
Okay.
So for example, here, as you can see, first the idea was to of course, getting the references, getting the package in the right way, in the right position. I gathered some references of the current ID Pass of Volkswagen. Really beautiful design, I really like it, but I wanted to make it even more cute in a way from the package. So I used the different images that really inspired me from the key sketches from here, from the interior design proposals, from the press sketches to get, let's say, on the way of actually understanding what I wanted to use in a way for the package. I created the proportion of the top view, the front view, the side view, and really started to create from this package actually my own design. So it was really starting with a really solid proportion package to actually jump into creating my own workflow. And then if we go to the second stage, it was basically creating already my approach of this new design process. I think this was around the second session, if I was not mistaken, Sophia, like
Yes.
getting to already making the design.
Yeah, this was more about a stroke tool. Can you maybe demonstrate how you did this tight wireframe?
For example, in this one, it was basically, as I said, I have the package of the proportion of the ID bus, and I just started to make, let's say, the reskin of the elements. So I was just making like free sketching of all the pillars, of all the different, really, let's say, key design themes that I wanted to use, like here, and just playing with it. I mean, for me, I really just like to have fun along the process, to really do what I really want to see as a let's say, as a consumer of media. So I was just doing what I really felt okay. I don't know, it took maybe like 2 hours in a way, because it was really easy to understand which the way of the lines were going along, and also understanding how I wanted to evolve the design in the next steps. And at the end, I was having already a complete basic wireframe. But for me, it helps me to deliver. Let's say if I put myself one-to-one, it was already, as I was saying, like in my really small apartment, I was already seeing this ID bus of almost 3.5 meters, maybe more, with the possibility of these VR glasses. So for me, this is the most impressive part. I can put myself standing up, going in different angles. And for me, this is like just a really easy way to actually create my own thinking process into reality. And yeah, I created the exterior proposal, and then I jumped it also into the interior, because a car for sure is a product with the two elements. And I made some proposals of the interior really fast. We didn't have too much time to really, let's say, make a really high quality, in a way, design approach of the interior, but it was only exploring different also new features of the software, see how it was performing inside of the software and so on, and just making a design to have fun. I mean, at the end, the idea was to enjoy it and to have fun along with it. And yeah.
Cool, that's impressive. You did this in, I think, 2 hours. So you were super fast.
I mean, I think it was like 3 hours, more or less. I mean, we already have a really good package to start with, so it was just redrawing the lines in a way. So it was really, let's say, efficient. And with you and with Ed also helping with the different elements, it was really easy to understand also how the new software, like the new features, were actually working.
Somebody is asking in the chat if the package was done in VR. Everything was done in VR, right?
Everything was done in VR. So what I did, if we go back a little bit, is basically I first gathered the references of what I wanted to use as a base, as proportion. I put it in the side view to have it like in the right position, top view, side view, rear view, and so on, and just starting to draw the basic outlines like we can see in these ones. I mean, I only drew the outlines of the stuff to really see how actually my design will be contained, to kind of create
like
this
a blueprint.
And from this one, I created the design. So everything was, since the start, done in VR.
Cool. And did you use the screenshot? So for instance, here we see a screenshot on the floor. Did you use the screenshot and took them to Photoshop or other graphic software to like sketch the ideas on top of it?
I mean, right now, I have not implemented too much this workflow of really combining Photoshop along the process with the Gravity sketch screenshots, but I introduced it for the final images. I did that. So I took the screenshot of actually the viewer of the Gravity sketch, and I enhanced it, empower it more with the Photoshop brushes and so on. But let's say it was kind of an end result combination of workflow. I have seen many people actually, as also you, Sophia, of making this combination along the process of making the screenshot and also making in Photoshop the design. For me, I don't know, like personally, this is also what I was trying to say at the start. For me, it makes more sense and it is more easy to jump right away into 3D, because I see really in a way how the line is behaving three-dimensionally talking. In Photoshop, in sketching, we can have this perspective, playful cheat in a way. I mean, it's not bad, but it's kind of deforming the perspective to make it more impressive. But if you have it right away in 3D, it is let's say, what you will have as a result if you do a 3D right away. So for me, it always saves time of actually thinking how it will look in 3D right away since the beginning.
Okay.
So now basically like imagining, well, you're already imagining things spatially and in 3D, but now being able to visualize them quite quickly in 3D has become a really big part of your workflow.
For me, this is one of the really, I mean, I can say right now, thank you very much to the team of Gravity Sketch, because for me, really facilitate me. And also my experience as a designer was really much more enjoyable, like having this tool right away. For me, for example, like as simple as it is, having this really cute face of my way of I was perceiving is just really fun. It made me, it becomes kind of a video game, or actually like working. I enjoy it much more, and I really, let's say, feel the car is existing already, let's say, in this reality. That's what I was saying, like the discussion is designing between realities. In one reality, we have our like real base of sketching in the hand and making clay models in reality. The second reality for me is this one, where we have the possibility actually with these magical glasses of making stuff like appear from nowhere. And the third reality is the AI that is creating his own interpretation of the world. But for me, these kind of tools really enhance me and even encourage me to create more, because I really enjoy it a lot.
There's a
Go,
really
you really go.
interesting question in the chat that I really want to hear your answer for this. Is like, at what point do you normally jump to keyboard and mouse design software? That's, I mean, very
It's
different.
a question. I mean, is as I have said. I mean, I will repeat it many times, but it depends a lot of you as your own process. For me, I do everything of modeling until now in VR. I only use and I only jump into keyboard and mouse and let's say to in a 2D view when I have already the final model. So for example, I will skip this one a little bit, but jumping right away into this one. So this already has the design wish of the textures of the surface of what I want. And maybe I have to fix like in a much more controlled way, specific little elements. I do it in Blender for now. So I export this model as FBX into Blender. I maybe reshape some really like small elements, fixing some normals if I have to, and some volumes. But the complete, let's say 90% of the work is already for me in Gravity Sketch. But it's really up to you. I have seen many friends also and colleagues also making the combination of making a sketch like volume wise on this stage, only making the sketch model really broadly, like really, let's say, abstract wise, and then jumping into Blender to making the refinement of the whole model. But this really, let's say, up to the person, up to the designer with which tools he's really feeling comfortable.
Yeah, and I see the interior, it's pretty detailed in the last stage. You have the camping tools here.
Yeah.
And you also mimic the lighting. That's a nice trick. How do you do this lighting simulation?
The lighting, it was, I mean, I think we have layers blocks. Yeah, but basically you can do it in different ways. You can do it as a PNG. You import it into Gravity Sketch and then you lower the opacity. So for example, if I do it right away with another example. So let's say we have this as an emissive light, like to cover, and then you can just click it with your right controller and control the opacity of the layer. You can do this. I mean, for example, I think like in this, I mean, the approach was to make this cartoon effect that I also saw in other models. So for example, this one making like a really fake cartoonish effect of the shading is like with this technique, but the other one, it is this one. And this one is basically a PNG imported into the Gravity Sketch and also lowering the opacity. So it also works both ways. It's really up to you to choose which ones is better, suiting better for the design and so on.
Nice. You have a very specific way how you sketch here, because it's really embodies the term 3D sketch, because it's not 3D model, it's not typical sketch. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it is only a combination of making what you are thinking on the process. I mean, as you can see, for example, nothing is really refined in a way. It is only along the way of actually was how I was imagining things. I was creating my own stuff. So this is, let's say, a really good starting package of making actually the final design. And as you say, it is not a 3D model. It is a sketch itself of thinking process in a way. And this project was focused on that for sure.
I love that, because most of the times we think of 3D as something very, perfect, almost towards the final stages of the creation process, and not too much about just, going in there and like just problem solving, figuring out what you actually have in your head, just bringing it out and understanding what that actually looks like.
Exactly. I mean, for me, it is just, I mean, it feels natural. I was before using, for example, softwares as Rhinoceros, SolidWorks, and it was really painful process, to be honest, for me at least. And when I have the possibility in 1 hour, 2 hours of already having these results, and also seeing right away what I was thinking, it's just really helpful. And it motivates me also even to do more and to try it more.
Do you
But yeah.
recommend always working in one-to-one scale?
I don't recommend always working in one-to-one scale. I like to use one-to-one scale basically for evaluation of the proposal and really immerse myself as my own experience as designer into this reality of the cars existing. So for example, if I put myself one-to-one, like in this case, and I just start, I mean, if I stand up is most interesting, but maybe the camera won't track me. So I will do it
Okay,
from
I
here.
pinned you. You are pinned.
Okay, so for example, if I calibrate more or less the distance, it will be a little bit higher than this guy. And we can see already the perspective of the car is, for me, already selling that is existing there. And I do this one-to-one mostly for enjoying what I created, for sure, because we have to enjoy what we are doing. And also just going along the different views and seeing the car in different positions and so on. So I use one-to-one only for, let's say, seeing and evaluating how the process is going and enjoying for sure that is creative. So yeah.
Nice. And what we also see here is the final photoshopped results. Can you maybe like talk about how did you get to these final images?
As you were mentioning, of this combination of the taking a screenshot and combining it with Photoshop, it saves you a lot of time because for sure you already have a base to start with. What I did also as an exploration, I mean, the whole software, the whole project was an exploration of different, let's say, tests. I was testing the screenshots of the side view, for example, and then in Photoshop adding all the extra details, maybe correcting color, fixing some highlights and so on. In Photoshop right away. But the result is to really have kind of a, I don't know, an enhanced version of the image itself. But let's say the base of it was only a screenshot of a gravity sketch.
Mm-hmm. And would you say it's like saved you some time, or like how did you feel about the workflow, gravity to Photoshop, 3D to 2D?
2D, that is a really good way to put it. I mean, for me, it saves me time. I mean, it is basically a combination of 3D, 2D, and then if you need, you can go back because you realize you want to change something. But kind of having these two different positions, like inside the car itself, inside this reality, and then going out to see it from a much farther away distance, it really helps you out to, let's say, perceive different ways of actually evaluating the design. For me, it saves me a lot of time because I already have a base that I can just, let's say, enhance, proof. I don't know, maybe spending 50% of the time less when I'm making like this because I don't have to create the whole package and then rethink how is the perspective going to look like, because already here the perspective is already, let's say, true to reality because it's already a 3D. It's not lying to you how the perspective is deforming. It's already the package you created. So this for me is really also like saving me time of actually thinking of my process of actually making the visuals.
Nice.
Do you think that sometimes that could work against you, as in because it's so realistic that your actual like final image is not, it doesn't have this like very extreme perspective, or
That is a really good question. Actually, I didn't thought about it too much. I mean, I'm pretty sure
I'm gonna stop using
sometimes
gravity now.
that is the good thing about questions. So for me, until now, it has worked, let's say, most of the times in a pro, because I like to have, let's say, different stages of aesthetics when I'm creating my stuff. At the start, it can be really rough, let's say, kind of sketchy, not refined, and so on. But when I'm already creating the 3D model, for me, I want to see it, how it will look in reality. So until now, at least for me, I have not had any issues of making these, let's say, this combination. Because if I realize, let's say, in the image, when I see it in 2D, it's not what I was expecting. I mean, it is true to reality. So if I put it in 50 millimeters camera, it is really, let's say, the middle point, and it's not looking as I want. There is something that is not working in the model itself. So like in the design itself. So then I realize, I mean, maybe it can be a kick in the face for sure, hard one, but it can be really, let's say, a reality of actually seeing that something is failing in the model itself, and I have to fix it for sure. So until now, it has worked well. So let's see in the future how.
Yeah, and in some way you're making sure that what you are creating from the very beginning could be something that sees the light of the day, right? Like something that you could actually see
Exactly.
on the streets, as opposed to a really
Or at
beautiful
least I
image, but
imagine,
it will
yeah.
be
I
modified.
mean, for
Yeah.
me, I really, let's say, have been inspired by concept design in the way of thinking what will happen, what I would like to happen in the future. So for me, I would love, let's say, if I put the car like this and I make the Photoshops, I want to see it realistic in a way so I can believe it will be existing in 10 years or 20 years in the future. So I can imagine myself actually the car riding in the streets and so on.
So do you collaborate? There's Francisco is asking, do you collaborate with other stakeholders within Gravity Sketch? How is the decision process made?
So I have tried to make this collaboration with other designers, but to be honest, right now for me it's a really busy time between the university and the company. So I have not had, let's say, the really pleasure to have this combination of two mindsets inside of the Gravity Sketch. So sadly, I can't answer in a way because I don't have the experience of making collaborative work too much. But for sure, I am really looking forward to it. Right now, I'm kind of, let's say, with really short time in between my daily life, but for sure it's something that I'm looking forward, because what is better than one head is two heads thinking about the design.
So yeah, but in some way you're already kind of doing it, right? Because you presented this project within VR,
Mhm.
so that you already did that, right? You already brought some other people that needed to have a say in your design.
For sure. I mean, for example, mostly with my mentor in Volkswagen, Simon, we are always having kind of discussions. I mean, if we have the possibility, we jump into Gravity Sketch so I can really show him what I am thinking as my process, as the result. And it is really easy because he can see three-dimensionally. Like, if, for example, if I'm talking about the headlight, only this feature of how the headlight is component. In Photoshop, maybe it is, let's say, distorted because of the perspective, three quarters, whatever. But here you can really see right away how it will behave in the three dimensions. So he will be flat. He will be much more, let's say, like facing to you. And he can tell me, okay, I don't know, from this side, it looks like a little bit too small. Let's make it bigger, like, and extrude it to the long to so you can actually perceive it from the side. But he can really, like, straight away see how the element is performing three-dimensionally. And for me, this is what is really strong when you're having these collaborative evaluations in a way that I'm doing all the time. You can really have a much clear feedback to work on, to improve your work on. You don't know, maybe you don't have the doubt of maybe what he was trying to say, but you understand right away what he's trying to say because he's pointing with the screen collab. You can really, like, also draw exactly as Sophia is doing. So it is a much efficient way of actually talking between designers, between creatives, of what you are talking.
So do you think it speeds up the design process? Tom Humphrey is asking how much quicker has Gravity Sketch cut down the time from concept to production in the car industry? That's a big question.
It's a
Um,
really big question.
but in your
Exactly.
experience, in your own design process, how do you feel this has kind of like reduced the time for you to actually be able to express an idea?
I mean, at least from the, let's say, like from two different positions. From the production side, I can't say too much in a way because it's really new still. We're still improving and really seeing how we can make it work so we can have a production element at the end that can dive into reality. Because for sure it's a much more detailed, accurate modeling element. So we are on the process of really developing the workflow to make it work. For me, as my personal projects and on my process I have already shown here, it has improved at least the creativity of the starting. I was sketching maybe in 1 week the whole idea until I have a key sketch. Here, maybe in 2 sessions of gravity sketch, maybe of 2 hours each one, I already have a feeling of this. So let's say it is improving like in a number, like 120%. I don't know. Really giving it, yeah, I don't know, like the specific number, but it is really for me in the ideation, in the design process, like in this hard skill of the design process, is improving more than half. I mean, like 75 or even 100 something.
Cool. And also, do you remember when we were on site and we showed your managers your interior in the mixed reality? So we set them in. Yeah. It was super cool to evaluate and to experience the whole 3D sketch in one-to-one, when you also see the design studio.
I mean, if I put myself the same as this let's say avatar here, I think I'm in the right position.
Can you grab his hand? Yeah, this is also super cool because when you are doing, when we were setting the package, remember, like we set first the mannequin. So when you set the mannequin,
yeah, for sure, it's the best reference to do. But for me, for example, as interior designer, by the possibility of doing this, like as simple as doing this and seeing the back, is already really cool. Because you are actually really able to see the whole room like as a design proposal. It's not only about making the front element with the dashboard and the middle element from the Miko, but you are actually seeing the whole room and feeling how it will look in reality. So putting myself like, okay, putting like the same as this guy, enjoying the ride, I don't know, drinking something, and then like really seeing how the things are element and like are performing in different sides. For example, if I put myself in the second seat, this one is more like this, I don't know. So it's really allowing you to perceive the complete car in different stages. And I think it happened with all products. It's not only with car design, but also with shoe, with clothes. I have seen really crazy people making these super huge mechas, like of 2 buildings tall. And if you put it one-to-one, you're really scared because it's really giving you the whole perspective of the whole impression of the model. So yeah, this immersion is really, for me, fun to do.
So Felipe, how do you think, like how easy has it been for the industry to adopt this? We live in a very traditional industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's
like automotive way more. Yeah.
It is a tricky question because for sure you have a lot of different mindsets around one only topic, like only one topic. What I have perceived, let's say in a way, is that people is always against change because for sure it means learning something new, investing more time of changing what you're already used to working. So people are really, let's say, like not accepting so easily the tools at the start for sure because they don't want to change what they are using to. But if you really sell them in the right way and like guide them and show them and like the process, they can for sure see the possibilities of having these new tools, these new approaches of design, and really improving them and implementing them later on. I think it's like with any tool, with any software, with any advancing technology, it is always a process of actually introducing the software, introducing the technology, introducing the advantages, making people feel comfortable with it, and then at the end really implementing implementing it as a really skill to use in the production or in the industry itself. So it is a long process, but it is possible to do for sure.
And you're seeing it happen right now.
I am seeing it happen even more and more. I mean, it is crazy to see, for example, like the best example right now, the really hot one is AI. I don't know, like maybe 1 year and a half, it has been since it really came out. And already all the companies are freaking out because they are seeing how we implement it, how we use it, how we actually going to develop around it. So this is one really good example of how the whole process can be actually happening. With VR also, for sure. I mean, it is coming on the way.
We have so many questions from the audience.
Okay, Felipe, do you want to come on screen and we can talk?
Yes.
Maybe before you jump out, because there's one that, in case you want to demonstrate something, do you spend a lot of time getting the 3D sketch lines perfect? The wheel arch lines perfect?
Yeah, I mean, I will jump right back to show only this small feature, but I do spend a lot of time only in the, let's say, wireframe or line sketching, because for me, in the way I work is actually helping me later for the 3D modeling is already a base. It's kind of the way you use, for example, for Rhino, you create a spline, and then from the spline, you create the surface. So for example, from this one, I don't know, I have a really accurate approach of the, how you said in English, of the upper console that I want to have. And already these two, you can create a complete surface, but for me, it's already a good guideline to actually making already the surface. So for example, if I grab it, I already know where and like when it will start, when it will end. I can just drag it and really start to create the surface from it. And as you see, for example, here is just really putting and investing time of making the surface work with the wireframe. But I do really spend a lot of time making the wireframe also really accurate in a way. If it is the most accurate, you can really use it also later for different steps of the process.
Great. And then the mannequins that you're seeing there, the humans are like they come with Gravity Sketch, and you've been using them quite a lot, right?
I really enjoy putting them into different situations. It's telling a story also. Some guys that are working on this stuff, like putting the strings more harder than the other ones. I don't know. Some of them are just enjoying the different elements from these headlights. I did show to Sophia once the first attempt what I did of creating a, let's say, a museum with mannequins. I had so much fun putting the mannequins into sculpture positions, like I don't know, the thinking and like this, because it is also enjoyable. Is to create also a story along with it. And if for sure if you have a human inside of it, it is much more easy to relate to reality than if it is not.
Yeah.
Nice.
Good. Yeah. If you want to join us
back to reality.
Back to reality.
Back to the first reality.
Thank you. This was great demo.
happy to. Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, so there's many questions. I'm trying to figure out which one. So do you use AR to share the proposal during work sessions? Like if the car was there, but everyone was using VR in an enclosed area to understand the proposal and discuss about it?
Yeah, so basically, I mean, right now I use it mostly, let's say, in a way of one-to-one. So if I have my mentor, my boss, my colleague that I want to have their feedback, I use it one-to-one. You can create the collab rooms to really, let's say, even if he's in his home and I am in the company or so on, they can join and we are in the same reality of the car and we can really just connect and talk about. So I do use it for making mostly one-to-one. But for example, I can already say it, I also did some presentations where I was inviting more than one people into the VR experience for Unreal Engine. I will show it at the end if we have the time enough. But basically, I was creating a complete story since the beginning of the presentation to make the people jump into the way I was thinking this future or so on. So I really think like from the VR, you have a really also powerful storytelling and creating your own way of perceiving the reality and more like emotionally wise, more interesting.
Nice.
Cool.
Okay, so Alexander is asking, I understand why you would want to work and visualize directly in Gravity Sketch for the conceptual phase, but how does this help reducing the project timeline if everything you do has to be rebuilt at some point in order to make it feasible? So that's a great question. It's also answering a lot of questions that we've had on how does like the work that you do in Gravity Sketch actually integrate with the next stages, like with the next software that you're going to be using or somebody else is going to be using in the pipeline. So yeah.
And so, for example, I have already tested with some colleagues, for example, like really, let's say, of combining two different focus of designing the car from engineering side and from the designer itself. It is much easier to communicate your ideas with the engineer that is actually going to test it and to see if it is possible or not, or if he's the modeler, let's say, in charge of making the final approach of the car. For him, it's much easy, at least from my perspective, if he has already a 3D shape to work on, because he can see again how the surface is performing, and he can really, let's say, understand how the designer is thinking the surface. With Photoshop, you can, or like with images, you can really deform the way, and maybe you don't have clear how, mostly the corners are the tricky ones, how this corner is actually going to be resolved in 3D space-wise. If you give them the, let's say, the sketch of the 3D wireframe or like really basic shapes to them, like as a FBX or so, for them, I think is also a really good start of actually starting their work much more easily, much more understandable in a way.
And so you are quite far in terms of like the type of designer that is just super open to adopt any tool that will get your design process to the next level, help you out. So we spoke a lot about VR already. There are a few questions in the chat about AI, and you spoke briefly about your AI process. Somebody's asking if you're already integrating AI into your 3D creation process, but I think it would be great to understand a little bit more how you're thinking about AI in general and how you're already using it.
So for that, we can start the next session, like the next part of the presentation in a way, and it is focused actually on showcasing how I use AI with a different project that I created. It was my bachelor thesis. Can you see my screen? Yeah?
Yep.
Yes.
So this one was already a couple of years ago when it was not so hot. The theme of AI was really new in a way. And as you say, Daniela, I mean, for me, it makes sense as a professional designer to be, let's say, testing new stuff all the way. Is to keep basically your mind open to new possibilities, because I mean, they will come for sure. They will arrive always. So it is the best situation if you already test them, understand them, to actually getting into the work of actually how you will use it. With AI, when I saw the first time, I was really mind blown with the aspect of inspiration kick. So for me, basically, AI is like Bob Ross used to say, happy accidents. You didn't want them, but once you have them, you really don't want them to let them go. And the AI is really giving you this possibility. It's kind of a different like headset, like a different mindset of actually performing your own task of, let's say, creating stuff. I use right now AI in two different ways mostly, and like really focus on these two. First one is accidental inspiration. I don't have any specific goal in mind. I don't have any idea that I'm looking for to develop, but I'm only making, let's say, searching and see how actually this AI can inspire me back in introducing new elements to a really abstract way, like concept-wise, not with the specific shapes, into my projects that I'm making, or maybe actually giving me ideas for future projects to develop. And the second way is idea exploration. This one is focused specifically on developing an idea you already have, a design thema, a key sketch, and push it even more to the extremes with the help of AI, because it also allows you to have a different perception of the problematic you're making. So for me, basically, the AI is kind of a really good buddy that is helping me out, my AI friend in a way. It allows me to really whisper me different ways of approaching the design, and really, let's say, helping me out, get out of these creative blocks if I have them sometimes. So it becomes kind of a creative trigger. It's really just in the moment I get inspired. I didn't know what I was searching until I found it and he offered to me. And for example, in this case, the bachelor thesis was the best example for it. And to summarize really briefly the concept of the project, it was basically to create a more emotional future of racing cars, where we as spectators, as pilots, and also as technicians, we are able to have a more emotional connection to the race. So in that case, the car, it becomes a communication tool of what the pilot is experiencing during the race. The car becomes an extension of the human body of the pilot, so we can see how his heartbeat is doing, how his movement of the different parts of his body actually are performing, and it is much more entertaining also experience-wise. And it was thanks to AI that I was really able to push this result aesthetically and also concept-wise until the edge. On the top view, like on the top images, they are AI, like the AI input that I found on internet, or I created myself by making the prompts. And then I made the analysis as a trained designer, as a professional designer, to really see how these specific elements or specific highlights of color, like design themes, can really inspire me to make my own designs. So the under image were the one actually my result as a designer of actually already making the process of getting inspired by the AI, but getting interpreted and worked by the human. So this is more or less the result, the final result of the car. I was really happy, as I was mentioning, to be, let's say, able to use the AI. Many people, let's say, are against it or they're not so sure. I will just tell them, try it. I mean, it is for free. Just try it, see how it goes, see how it feels. If it doesn't work for you, it is more than okay. I mean, we are really different designers. We have also really different ways of thinking. So it's just, like, say, testing it, see how you can make it implemented. It is up to you or not, and just see how it goes. For me, I was really happy. I gave myself the chance of actually using the AI, because it boosted the result really, like, amazingly, concept-wise and also aesthetic-wise. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's any more questions about it.
Yeah, we have some questions in the chat. So first, what AI engines are you using?
Right now, the ones I'm using the most is the Stable Diffusion and Midjourney. Midjourney, I'm really happy with the result aesthetic-wise. The images are so beautiful. I mean, each time I create prompts, I'm really happy with the result with all of them. So for me, I use mostly right now Midjourney and Stable Diffusion for this inspiration phase. I have seen, for example, Viscom for exploration and development of the idea, but this is a different workflow itself. For me, inspiration is Midjourney to go.
And do you use it also for refining the idea? Like Viscom is more like you have the idea and you render it. Yeah. Have you tried this?
To be honest, not so much. I mean, I have given some tests and to see how it goes, but to be honest, I'm more in the way of actually having, like, on the first block of the projects, what I have done, for example, and it has helped me to have new ideas of the renderings and visualization, is to put the final rendering and getting and achieving different possibilities of colors combination and scenario creation. This is really interesting for me. But like making, let's say, as a last end AI combination workflow, not so much.
Have you tried making your own database for the AI?
I have tried and I have failed.
Why?
But I'm trying. I mean, that is the thing. Not always it is working. For sure, you'll have hype and lows, but I'm really looking forward to achieve the result. But so, yes.
Good. All right. So we have time for one last question, because we're almost up. There's so many. There are some questions around VR. So guys, if you have questions around, like, the headsets and so on, definitely Felipe can tell us a little bit about his experiences jumping in and not getting dizzy and so on. But if you have any more questions about that, when we have the tables open, we're going to have Gravity Sketch team members answering all of those questions for you guys. So if you have those, just, we can use the time for that later on. Sure. But yeah, let me just see if there's something else regarding your workflow.
I will tell one more thing before we jump into the latest questions. This is, let's say, this is what I'm working right now in my different projects, and it is basically bringing the VR, as I was mentioning, but as a tool for telling a story. So this was the presentation that I was saying, where I give the headset to two different people, and I dive them inside of this complete story since the beginning of exploring and telling the complete project itself. I created a complete experience all around with music, with soundtracks, and so on, and also telling the project itself. So for example, if I go back here, I am telling like the whole, let's say, theory-wise, but you are already inside of the world, so you are able to see freely whatever is happening around. And for me, this is what I was meaning of creating actually a much more enjoyable way of selling your stuff, of selling the way you think, selling the way you approach design. So for sure, this is one of the things that I'm looking really forward in the future to keep exploring. So yeah.
Those are great parting questions. Thank you so much, Felipe, for joining us today, for sharing with us your incredible workflow that I'm sure is going to just continue evolving as the days pass. Thank you, Sophia, as well, for joining us today and asking some
Yes,
really,
it was
really good.
exciting. Thanks for having us. And Felipe, let's stay in touch. I'm excited for your next journey and for your learnings and improvements.